from a young age, you always had this ability to almost talk your way out of things.
Negotiate.
How would you define yourself?
I think fair.
Fair.
Yeah. I will always go into a situation impartial and try and find middle ground. So again, I remember one of my clients said to me, he said, I would never want to be against you because I can never read you.
Do you think that you're still learning things?
Every day. I think everyone is. I think no one knows everything. And one of the things that sort of stuck in my mind was he said to me, if you hadn't done what you did back then, I probably wouldn't be here now.
Yeah, you seem to have an amazing way of not letting things impact you. Even now, the way you're looking at me. It's always a steady. You can never really tell what's going on behind there.
Poker face.
Welcome back to Seasoned Professional. I'm your host, Hannah Octavia, and today I'm excited to share the very first episode I ever recorded. Launching this podcast has been an incredible journey, and it's truly special to revisit the conversation that started it all. Beginning Seasoned Professional with this remarkable guest was an absolute privilege, and I look forward to having him back in the future to delve even deeper into his inspiring story. Today, I'm excited to share the story of a remarkable individual. Born and raised just outside Brighton, he grew up surrounded by nature and animals. From a young age, he was drawn to the world of law, fascinated by the courtroom's theatrics and the deep, lasting relationships forged with clients. With a singular focus on his goals, he embarked on a career that has been nothing short of extraordinary. This steadfast dedication has led him to spend his entire professional career at a single law firm, a rare achievement in today's fast-paced world. He steadily rose through the ranks to become an equity partner while maintaining his values and demonstrating the quiet power of patience, persistence, and dedication. His story is a refreshing reminder of the rewards that come from committing to a path and seeing it through. It was a joy to speak with him, and I know you'll find his perspective as inspiring as I did. Please welcome my guest, my very first guest that I ever recorded, Nicholas Taylor.
We're going to start with our very first kind of chat, which is your lovely photo on the wall here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about it?
Yes, I will. That's I'll just show the camera that. This is a picture taken with my brother and sister when we grew up on a farm, and I reckon I'm probably 7 or 8 there.
And just so everyone knows, which one are you in that photo?
I'm the one holding the fox.
The one holding the fox.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So the story behind that is I grew up on a farm, and behind the farm was a chalk pit where they mined chalk, and I, with my brother, used to go when it was shut, sort of adventuring around it and seeing what we could find, mainly sort of fossil hunting, because there was loads of fossils there that sort of were embedded in the chalk, so it sort of became quite a sort of thing that my brother and I did. And one day, where they'd been mining, they'd dug up a fox layer, and the parents had disappeared, and there was just this tiny little cub. I mean, this is a while after we'd had Riddle, who we named.
Oh, Riddle.
And so we bottle fed him, and he sort of became a sort of big part of the family, and sort of mixed around with the dogs and the other animals. But eventually, after about 3 years, when he started sort of getting vixens coming over when he was a bit of a lad, unfortunately, we had quite a few poultry on the farm, sort of chickens, free range and stuff like that. And so it was a bit dangerous for them because he was bringing all his girlfriends back.
Oh, gosh.
So he ended up in a fox sanctuary.
Okay.
And sort of spent the rest of his days there.
Is that a euphemism?
No.
It was a true fox sanctuary for real.
It was a rescue sanctuary for foxes. So.
Oh, lovely.
So he sort of spent his first years with us, and then the rest of his years in the sanctuary.
Did you ever visit him again?
Couple of times.
And do you think he recognized you?
No.
No, not a clue.
No, he did. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah, he did.
Amazing.
Yeah. So he was lovely, and it's quite interesting. He was. Obviously foxes are wild animals by nature, but he became very sort of domesticated as a family pet.
That's
and
amazing.
the dogs just sort of played with him as one of their own.
That's crazy. And I know dogs tend to sleep with their owners. Did that pet ever sleep with you?
No.
No, not that domesticated.
No, not really. I mean, again, we sort of lived in a bit of a higgledy-piggledy sort of house, and so all the animals were all downstairs and we were upstairs.
That's amazing.
But yeah, he slept with the other animals downstairs.
What a unique story. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, you can pop Riddle back on
Thank
the wall
you.
there. Let's see if you can get it. Oh,
Perfect.
excellent. Are we straight there, Elliot? Fabulous. Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that photo and memory with you. It's just nice for the audience members to kind of see when you were young and where you are now and the lovely man you've turned into. So
That's very kind of you. You don't know me very well.
Well, I'm assuming these things.
It's a lot of assumptions.
Yeah. And hopefully I'm right.
Hopefully.
But to start off, our very first question for today is, what was your dream career as a child?
Probably going back to that, something in sort of animal conservation. And whilst I didn't do that, because obviously I've started a legal career, through that legal career, I've come around to now work with animal charities in a conservation role. So in some respects, it was one of my dreams, but it's now sort of come to fruition much later in life through a different avenue and a different journey.
Definitely. What made you initially go down the legal path, if it wasn't your childhood dream?
Well, it was sort of, it became an ambition of mine quite early on, and sort of watching TV programs as a kid with people in court, doing the advocacy in court was something that grabbed me straight away. And the drama of being in a courtroom, I found very engaging. And I think it's quite theatrical, and I'm sort of quite, again, through the sort of the journey of law I've taken, I work with a lot of media clients who are obviously very theatrical in their makeup, and I naturally gravitate to people like that. And I think that initial sort of thing that caught my imagination was that sort of theatrical way a courtroom plays out, because it's like a drama.
Absolutely, especially here with the
wigs.
The wigs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get to wear wigs, unfortunately.
Unfortunately not.
Over here, it's sort of the barristers who wear the wigs and the solicitors don't.
Well, you still got the nice hair.
I've got the grey hair,
You've got
which
the grey
is
hair.
close as, I suppose, yeah.
And tell me a little bit about what you were like in school in your primary years.
Probably the class clown. One of those kids who sort of would do the studying right at the end to get the exam. So I didn't have to study too hard to pass what I needed to pass. I'd sort of do it a couple of days before, all hours through the night, to learn it, and I could then regurgitate it and get through the exam. So I wasn't overly studious, but studious enough. I knew how to do it to sort of play the system and pass.
Exactly. And what did your parents think of that? Did they, what were your parents' opinions on education and you being that kind of crammed to the end kind of student?
I think they let me do it my way. I mean, I've got an older brother who I went to uni, he didn't, and a younger sister again who finished school before taking any exams. So we're all quite different in the way we've sort of gone around our education.
And were your parents, what were their careers?
My father was an insurance broker and a property agent, so he was quite well known in Brighton. And my mother was a sort of housewife, sort of bringing up the kids.
Lovely.
And running sort of the farm that we lived on.
So your childhood was it sounded quite wholesome.
Yeah, it was outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, we lived on the South Downs, so most of my daylight hours were spent either in the chalk pit or up on the downs looking for stuff. I was very outward bound, interested in nature. So we were lucky where we lived. There was a time called a dew pond where it was a Second World War bomb had sort of left this big dew pond that obviously filled up with water, and we would spend hours there looking at whatever we could find. So there, there's grass snakes and adders and stuff like that, which I found fascinating as a kid.
And did you have a strong relationship with your siblings at that point?
Yeah, very. Yeah, very.
And as the middle child, did you ever feel overlooked by things, or
I think the other way round. I think because I was quite cheeky, I got away with murder, and my brother didn't. So I got the softer
treatment.
The softer treatment. He got the grounding treatment, and I knew how then to play it, so I got away with it.
So from a young age, you always had this ability to almost talk your way out of things.
Negotiate.
That's
Yeah.
What an excellent word to say. Bring me to the point where you're finishing up, your schooling.
I finished school at 15.
Okay.
And then you go to college. You do your college, and then you do your A-levels, and then you either go to uni or you go and get a job.
So at the age of 15, was your eye still on the conservation of animals, or had it switched to the legal career?
Well, I grew up around animals, so I still had animals around me all the time. But obviously my focus was I wanted to be a lawyer. So the journey was doing A-level law and then to go to university to do law. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, and so I was going to do it. Amazing.
So bring me through your first year of law school.
Boring.
Boring?
Yeah, it was too much work. A-levels were very... You had to work. Out of all the education I found, O-levels, last minute, swatting, pass. A-levels, Christ, this is hard work. So actually, college was a lot of work. University was a lot of play.
So when you're in college and this is your first time that you're actually having to kind of sit down and get through the content, did you ever second guess the career path that you had?
No. I mean, it was what I wanted to do, so I knew I'd have to work at it. I just didn't realise I kind of have to do a little bit more work for this. But I still, it didn't put me off. Well, just sort of going back, I think one of the things, again, just picking up on the sort of the drama of court. Again, I was fortunate. One of my dad's friends was a criminal lawyer in Worthing, and so when I finished school, obviously you got the summer holiday and then start of college. I thought, well, I want to go and see what working in a law firm's actually like. So I went and sort of did a summer sort of stint as a student with a law firm, and just by coincidence they had what was at that stage the biggest murder trial in the country, and they were representing one of the defendants in their practice, and so I ended up in sort of court number 1 at the Old Bailey, in the biggest trial in the country at that time, for about 6 weeks. And it was like, wow, that really pulled me into that sort of, this is what I want to do.
That's amazing. And what about that experience? Like, if you could put yourself back in those shoes, how were you feeling in that moment, if you could use one word?
Excited. It was exciting. I mean, it's a drama in front of you, and it's like real people.
Did you ever consider a career in acting, since you were so enamored by all this drama?
Yeah, I did a lot. I did all that at school and college. So I was in lots of plays and stuff like that. So I quite enjoyed doing that, but it was in my mind to become a sort of career in acting or anything like that. But I think there is a part of me that likes that sort of theatre.
When you were in the Old Bailey, I know you were working with a family friend, was there any advice that they embarked on you during that time?
No, not really. It was more hands-on. So it sort of ended up me running around London this is during the trial where evidence is coming up, trying to track down potential witnesses to support the position that the defendant was trying to get across to the court, where he wasn't admitting what was done.
That's quite a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it was, but it was enjoyable because it's like, wow, you're really involved in this.
Exactly, like you are doing something actionable that will then help.
Help, yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully. Amazing. Any other points about that was influential that you'd like to share?
I don't think so. I think it was just, as I said, it sort of enshrined what I wanted to do. I realised, definitely that's what I want to get involved with. It's not, I think sometimes you can have a vision of what you want to do as a career, and then you embark on that career, and actually it's not what you want to do at all. So I think for people, again, I get, as an owner of a business, and over the years, I always encourage students, and I've got a lot of friends who are kids who are going through college and that, so come and do some work experience. See what it's like. Because you may study for it and actually find it's not for you, and that's fine. But I think it's important to go and test the water as soon as you can.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think it's important to have those experiences because, like you said, we can glamorize things in our mind before we actually get there and do it.
Yeah, and again, now, obviously with TV, how it is, everything now is glammed up a bit.
Yeah.
So there's so many programs about law firms and being what a lawyer's like, but a lot of it is quite mundane, gritty work. It's not all showboating in court.
Exactly. And just briefly looking back, when you compared your experience in the Old Bailey with television shows that were aired at that time, did you see similarities? Did it seem like there were differences?
Well, you've got to remember back then, the sort of production of shows like that wasn't what it's like now. So you had, I think there was a program going back called The Old Bailey, or Rumple of the Bailey, something like that. That was a Crown Court program. I think there was actually a program called Crown Court as well, but they were pretty boring shows. They weren't sort of dramatized as they are now, that are made a lot more glamorous and sexy for someone looking to go, yeah, that's what I want to do as a career. So I think back then they were a bit drier.
And a little bit more accurate, probably.
Probably, yeah. Probably. But again, now obviously you see more in the States with, showing the trials on TV. So like the O.J. Simpson trial, that became a big drama for the whole of the States and the world, really, watching it.
When you were in university, were there any clubs that you joined specific to the law? Was there anything you did to better your chances of getting hired after the fact?
No.
No?
No, university was fun.
Yeah. It was a fun time?
Yeah.
And that's what you focused on?
Yeah, at that stage in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, I didn't find university challenging. A-levels were much more challenging than university.
Interesting. Why do you think that is?
I think because the way the exams are at university, as long as you put enough information down, they'll cherry pick the bits out that you got right and mark it, and they won't mark you down for putting inaccurate information. Back then, it might have changed now, but so if you had, I've got quite a retentive memory, so I read everything and regurgitate it. So even if I wasn't sure, I'd still regurgitate it, and then you're guaranteed you're going to get out of that the marks.
I see. So it was
boxing clever.
Amazing. So we went to university. We are now graduated. What's the next steps towards your career?
Then law school. So in Guildford. So I went there for, I can't remember if it was a year or 2 years. It might have been 2 years.
And was that much more of a challenge?
Ish. Yeah, ish. That's getting more serious now. If you want to go down the journey of becoming a lawyer, that's where you will go. So yeah, there's a lot more work there.
And just from a third person looking at your life, from what it sounds like is you were so enamored by the drama of it all, I'm wondering what made you sway to become a solicitor versus a barrister.
I think because the real difference between sort of working as a solicitor or a barrister is you get to deal with your clients as a solicitor. So you have that day-to-day contact. So the journey of their case you are in from the start to the finish. With a barrister, you dip in and out of it.
I see.
So, barristers tend to sort of draft the pleadings in a claim. They may get involved in a mediation, or they end up doing the hearing in due course. But the sort of the intermediate stages, the solicitor basically does the majority of that work and has the relationship with the client. And I do like relationships with people. So I always wanted that interface with the person rather than sitting there writing the advice that way and then ultimately getting involved in it at a later stage, or potentially never, because if it settles, the barrister's job's done.
Lovely. So you qualified as a solicitor in 1993.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, you were already working at a law firm before that?
So you do, back then it was called your articles, so you do 2 years, so you work in different seats.
And what do you mean by seats?
So there's different areas of law, so like conveyancing, where you're doing property transactions, corporate law, where you're dealing with business stuff, or litigation, which is where I went. So you have to do certain seats over the course of your 2 years articles to then become a solicitor.
Excellent. So we've got our 3 years university, then we go to law school, which is 2 years, and then are we doing another 2 years of articling?
Yeah, but that's working now, so you're now working on the job.
Gotcha. So you've finished law school. How did you initially get that first articling position?
Approaching a couple of local firms, and again, it was a bit too easy because I got 2 offers straight away. So it's then, okay, which one do I go with? And I decided to go with a firm that was then in Lewis and Hove. And it's the same firm I work with now, and now I'm an owner of.
So really came full circle. And what was it about that particular firm that was appealing to you over the other?
I think it was the opportunity straight away to run my own caseload. So it was sort of flying sort of by the seat of your pants straight away. So it was right, here's a caseload. I remember a lawyer was retiring, and it was like, take over his caseload. And it's very different to how it is now, and I wouldn't let any of my trainee solicitors do that now. But then it was like, right. I remember within a month I was doing a trial for a client and doing all the advocacy in court, and that was like, okay, right, let's just do it.
It was a very full-on experience.
Yeah, very full-on.
And do you think, in terms of your personality, that was the best way to go about it? For it to be 100%?
Yeah, I mean, I like a challenge, and it was a challenge, and I think doing that gave me the confidence to go, okay, yeah, fine. You know, some cases are obviously easier than other cases, and again, people are different. But I enjoyed the challenge, and I think you either like that sort of journey, or it's not for you. And I think you'll find out quite quickly if you want to become a sort of dealing with litigation, whether you want to do it or not.
Yeah, right away you kind of know if this is the thing for you.
It's not for everyone.
And when you started your articling career and you were kind of looking through the different seats that were available, did you have in mind that you'd want to go into litigation, or were there other paths that you were interested in?
No, I was always, that's what I wanted to do. And again, it goes back to that sort of courtroom drama environment that grabbed my sort of psyche that I wanted to do it.
Were you always sure of yourself in this new position as a young solicitor who was articling at this firm that you were given so much responsibility?
Well, I think I don't know. I mean, I can't remember, but I'm never not confident enough to ask someone a question if I don't know the answer myself. And that's something I always encourage people who work with me is don't ever be afraid to ask a question, even if you think it's a silly question, because none of us know everything. And again, there's always 2 ways of looking at a position, and it's better to explore that with someone else rather than just sort of go and make an error and then have to sort it out afterwards. So yeah, I'm never have been afraid to go and ask someone if I didn't know something. And I think that's important.
And in those early days, did you have a mentor that was particularly influential for you?
Probably the guy who set up the business, a guy called John Healy, who I was under him initially for sort of becoming the trainee. And he was a very calm, assured individual. And I'm quite similar to that. And that's how I've sort of progressed, being quite calm. You know, obviously you can get in very complicated, emotional, hectic situations with litigation, especially with things like injunctions, which are immediate, high pressured. Just remain calm, because again, you've got to give that assurance to the client who is emotional, under stress, under pressure, and if you're replicating that back to them, that's just going to heighten their feeling of stress.
Absolutely.
So stay calm. Is
that your natural disposition to stay calm?
Yes. My wife may say otherwise.
And even as a child, you said you were this class clown and that you were, always into the drama. Do you think that this mentor of yours kind of helped instill the importance of being calm? Or do you think it was just maturity that got you to a point?
Probably a bit of both. Probably a bit of both. I mean, again, I think as you progress as a child into your teens, into your adult years, and then you become an owner of a business, you mature naturally. Whatever your pace is your pace. But I think I've always been probably an old head on young shoulders.
A wise man. It's the white hair.
Some would say.
You became a partner in 2001 at the law firm?
Yes.
Yes. And tell me about, how did that come about?
I think it's a natural progression when you're working for a firm that you want to aspire to, if you want to stay at that firm, that you want to become a partner. And then from there, potentially, where does that then take you in that journey with that firm or another firm? So I think if you're going to be a solicitor, your aspiration will become a partner of a firm or the firm that you're with.
And did you ever, because obviously you've been to this firm for many years now, did you ever consider taking a different path, or did you feel content with where you were?
Well, I think by being where I am, I think clearly I was contented enough. I mean, I've been approached by other law firms over the years, but I've always been quite happy where I am.
You don't seem to get fazed by like the bright, shiny things that other people might be attracted to from another offer.
Not particularly.
Yeah, you seem like a very steady individual who knows what they want.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
That's fair. In those early years, is there any specific cases that you remember being specifically influential in your development as a lawyer?
I don't know. I mean, I've. It's a job, isn't it? So you do so many jobs. I've had so many cases. So they don't tend to stick out. It's the next job.
Yeah.
And you want to get on and do it, resolve it, whatever. I think as a kid, when I started out, probably as I said, within a month, I was doing everything myself. And I remember, I suppose probably from an ego point of view, I had got sort of given a trial to do in the morning. Right, you're in court for a 2-hour trial in the afternoon. Prep up and do it.
Wow.
And at that stage, you had to ask permission of the judge because I wasn't qualified. I was training for a right of audience.
Oh, man.
So it wasn't a big case, but it was, I don't know, say £30,000 claim. And I was acting for this claimant. And so I sort of went into the court, and obviously you're a little bit nervous, and it's like, I'd only had a couple of hours to prep up on it. And I've got to cross-examine and go through the evidence and stuff. And I remember the other side was a senior partner of one of the other law firms in the area, and he had his article clerk there taking notes, smiling at me, going, you could see the imaginary sort of impression, and I won that claim. So that was quite...
Wow.
I felt quite pleased of myself for the client.
Yeah.
But again, just looking at the article clerk over me, going, yep.
Look what I did.
Yep.
And you're right, taking notes.
Yeah, you take a note of that.
Yes.
So that, I mean, things like that are sort of, again, but it's an ego thing, isn't it, more than anything else?
For someone who might be going into their first kind of case, is there any recommendations for them to be more confident in that scenario? Because I think we can all say that we would be confident. We, do the best that we could. But is there a way to not let a lack of experience hinder your ability to perform?
I don't think you would be given that opportunity now, because the way the world is, with risk and with insurance and the way litigation is now, you've got to be very careful, and I don't think law firms will allow that free rein that they did 30 years ago, how long ago it was, 25 years ago. So I think the students that now do their training contracts will work under and are heavily supervised before they get the reins off them to then do that sort of thing. So they'll get a few years grounding before they do that. I had a few weeks.
Which is crazy.
But it's sink or swim.
It is.
So you either sink or you swim. But the world has changed since then.
So do you think that mentality has changed as well, the sink or swim, in terms of the law?
I think, yes. I think, there is a very sort of use of the word snowflake generation. And I think to an extent, people aren't allowed to have that experience now, which is a shame. But things have changed now. So, you aren't allowed to have the reins taken off you straight away. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it probably depends on the individual.
I think it depends on the individual. I think in some ways it's good because some people will buckle under the pressure too soon and then maybe put off a career that otherwise they may be very successful in. Or it goes the other way. But you don't get that opportunity now.
Yeah, which is interesting. And even, of course, as you're saying, you wouldn't be able to just be thrown into a courtroom, 3 weeks after starting. But for someone who maybe it is their first time in the courtroom and they have had, 2 or 3 years of being under a superior, I'm assuming that your first case would still be that of stress. So is there any recommendations you have to remain calm in those scenarios?
Well, I think if you're fully prepped, then by being fully prepped, you should be calm. If you're not fully prepped, that's when there's a problem.
Exactly.
So I think do your due diligence, make sure you're fully prepped for what you're about to go and do, and then enjoy the experience.
Absolutely. And we're going to do a little pivot, and we're going to talk about just how you view yourself. So I'd love to know, how would you define yourself as a person, whether that be in relation to the law or your personal life? How would you define yourself?
Don't know, that's a deep question. I think fair.
Fair?
Yeah. I will always go into a situation impartial and try and find middle ground. So I think it's important as a lawyer now, with the emphasis is very much on resolution and mediation, is to try and focus people's minds to get to a fair resolution of whatever the problem is, because it stresses people out. Someone who gets it wrong, it's going to cost a lot of money. And I think one of the things I've learned over time, doesn't matter whether you think you're right or wrong, it doesn't always work out that way when you ultimately end up in court. It can go the other way. You can get a bad decision. You can get a bad judge. You can get an unfair decision. And it's therefore a very expensive and stressful journey. So I've always looked at things in a very calm, impartial way, and tried to get the clients to see that, and see there's always a different interpretation sometimes, and whilst they may be quite steadfast in their mind and want to go down that journey, a lot of people don't know what that entails. And so I think the one thing I try and do is just try and be fair in my mindset as to, right, this is where you should look at it. Try and reduce your expectations a little bit, and then you could probably resolve it and get on with your life.
So you very much have a fair approach that is without bias.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want to represent your client, but you don't want to do that blindly.
Yeah, exactly.
So some of my clients are very successful people and very demanding, but it doesn't mean they're always 100% right in what they think their case is going to pan out to be at a trial. So they don't always like me saying, right, you've got to look at it this way, because it could end up not achieving what you want it to achieve. So look at it from the other person's point of view as well.
Do you think that questioning and, how shall I put this? Do you think that is a shared opinion of other lawyers, where they get their clients to look at it from
many different perspectives, or do you think that that's unique to how you practice?
No, it's not unique, but everyone's different, aren't they? I see all sorts of lawyers on the other side in cases, and some I would say are very similar. But again, I think a lot of that comes with experience. I think a lot of younger lawyers are under pressure, probably potentially feel pressured by their client to achieve what may be unachievable, and therefore don't always look at it straight away from a commercial aspect, just sticking to the technical side of the law. But a client wants the result quickly and as cheaply as possible. So you've got to always have that in your mind, that can you resolve it early on rather than charge your client hundreds of thousands of pounds and then it go wrong.
Exactly. And did you ever, when you were younger practicing, did you ever feel the pressure from clients, or have you always been able to maintain that?
No, 100% you feel pressure from clients. I still feel pressure from clients today, but I know how to manage myself to manage them. So I think it's looking at yourself first.
Interesting.
If I try not to take their stress on, because if you take their stress, then that doesn't work for them in their favour.
And do you think that, I would assume that your clients kind of feed off your presence as well. So if you're being calm, that will then calm them in the same sense.
Yeah, I think it's reassuring if you, if you're not flapping and you're assured, they feel they're in safe hands.
Exactly. And that is how we're feeling today, that
Good.
You feel very calm and soothing as a person.
I've got a quick question.
Yeah.
So there's like a fair amount of psychology with being in your position, because it as much as it is working on facts and figures, you've also got to figure out who you're talking to, whether it be your client or the person that you're talking to, and you've got to figure out how to talk to them and get through to them. And I've never really looked at law in that way.
There's a big part of having a poker face, especially when you're in a mediation, because you might know your case isn't as strong as it should be.
Yeah.
But if the other side don't know that or haven't picked up on it, but you've told your client you've got to be alert to this, because if this goes to a trial, this is where you're going to come unstuck.
Sure.
You've got to use that to your advantage in that meeting to broker a deal before it's picked up on. So again, it comes down to the quality of the other side, or if you get to it at an earlier stage where they haven't potentially gone to counsel for an advice, that you look to try and resolve it. So again, I remember one of my clients said to me, he said, I would never want to be against you, so I can never read you. I said, but that's the point. When you're brokering something, you've got to be assured, even if you know that you're on shaky ground on some of it.
Yeah, which is what that's all.
But again, it also helps. The older that you get, the more assured you can be in the way you deal with that. So I think on your point of being a younger lawyer, you see some of them haven't learnt that skill, or they just haven't got it. Grey hair again helps. Just by that natural default of, well, you've been doing this for a bit longer than me, you're a bit older than me.
Yes.
Maybe you're right.
We can kind of continue with that whole psychology aspect. Thank you, Elliot.
Thank you, Elliot.
Do you think that you're still learning things?
Every day. I think everyone is. I think no one knows everything. And I always, again, there's other lawyers in my practice that I will use as a soundboard to bounce ideas off. I think it's important you do that.
Absolutely. Can you tell me about one of your proudest achievements?
Probably getting a Blue Peter badge.
And tell me how that came about.
I did a bit of artwork as a child and got a Blue Peter badge. As a lawyer, or...
No, it can be that. When did you get that Blue Peter badge?
Oh, I don't know. When I was about 7.
About 7? Oh, goodness. I don't know much about the Blue Peter.
I knew you wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Did you make it onto TV?
No. But I still got the badge.
You still got
I've
the
still
badge?
got it somewhere.
You didn't want to wear it today?
No.
No.
Not that big of an achievement.
No.
So yes, in your career, what is the proudest achievement?
I don't know. I mean, any resolving anything. I mean, I've forgotten all about this, but one of my clients who I've acted for a long time got caught up in the post office scandal situation back in the day. Mm-hmm. I know he was a lovely, honest, hard-working, working class guy who'd made himself very successful as a post office master, and got caught up in the cock up that was with the calculations that the post office has come to light in the press recently. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it was very stressful for him. He was in the Crown Court being prosecuted for theft from the post office. Mm-hmm. And, we looked at it and we ended up persuading him to do a deal. And so he did a deal and got a non-custodial sentence by pleading guilty because he couldn't survive it. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I caught up with him recently and had a coffee with him over at Soho House, and he said to me, he said, if and he's gone on a different journey, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. very successful. And one of the things that sort of stuck in my mind was he said to me, if you hadn't done what you did back then, I probably wouldn't be here now, because I probably would have killed myself because I just couldn't cope with it. Wow. So something like that is quite meaningful. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's easy.
So it's easy to forget the things you've done like that. But that's, to him, that was a pivotal moment in his life that could have gone horribly wrong. Mm-hmm,
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard. It's easy to forget that
you're dealing with people.
100%, and that it has a greater impact than just that moment.
Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm. It could change the course of their life.
Absolutely. Do you carry any of that pressure?
No. I think I did start with, and I think I learnt, again, probably from being thrown in at the deep end very quickly. Mm-hmm. If you're going to swim rather mm-hmm. than sink, you've somehow not got to absorb that mm-hmm. or carry it, because then you won't be able to do it.
And has your ability not to absorb it just come from years of practice?
I think, yes. I think it's something that you either can do or you can't do. Mm-hmm. And I think if you can't do it, it's going to be a very stressful career. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And again, that can then impact on your health and your relationships, because if you carry that stress home into your home environment, then again, that leads to problems. Mm-hmm. So I think as a litigator, it's an area where if you can't almost compartmentalize. That's the word. You should look at, is that really the legal route you want to go down? Mm-hmm. Because there's other legal routes you can go down without being a litigator.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what I'm hearing is that once you've left the office for the day, you're very much in a different headspace. Like you're able to compartmentalize. When you're at work, this is the focus. Yeah. When you're at home.
99% of the time. Obviously, sometimes you've got to carry things over because it depends where your clients are based around the world.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So your day clock might be their night clock all the other way around, and so you've got to pick it up. So, it doesn't always work like that, but most of the time.
Most of the time you try and
it's
keep
important. I've got a home life and I've got a family, so you've got to do what you want to do in life as well outside of work.
Mm-hmm. Would you say that people always say that you either work to live or you live to work? Do you have a strong opinion on either of those?
No, not really. I mean, I enjoy what I do, mm-hmm. but there's days I don't enjoy it, mm-hmm. like everyone.
Exactly.
You don't always wake up whistling and walking into work.
You don't?
Not every day.
No, not every day.
Not every day. Most days.
Most days.
But I don't know. I mean, I enjoy the career I've gone down, and I wouldn't have changed it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, I would like to discuss some of your accomplishments outside of the law. Oh, However, before we do that, It's interesting that you say that one of your biggest accomplishments is hearing from a client who was so impacted by the role that you played in their life. When you received accolades such as the Spears 500, did you have a similar sense of achievement, or tell me about how you felt when that happened?
Yeah, obviously, you through your career, if you get recognised for what you do, then obviously, that's uplifting. So yes, obviously you feel proud of any achievement you do. But it doesn't sort of tailor how I do my job. It's a little bonus, if you can put it like that.
Yeah, you seem to have an amazing way of not letting things impact you. Like, I think that a lot of people that would put them on such a high, and if something were to not go their way, it would almost impact them more after that happened. So it's interesting that you're able to keep this steady even now, the way you're looking at me. It's always a steady. You can never really tell what's going on behind
the poker
there.
face.
It's the poker face. And that's just years of the practice, I suppose.
I think it's just who I am.
Yeah.
It's my nature. Yeah, it's nice to win an accolade, but it's not the be all or end all of it.
And it doesn't define you.
No, 100% not.
After doing some research on you and knowing you outside of this space, I know that you have a lot of interactions with, the animal space, but as well as the producing space and the film industry. So how did you make your way into those different areas?
Well, in relation to sort of getting into sort of media, I probably fell into it more than anything else. Just that, again, working here, sort of people who were in the industry, I sort of became friends with. They became clients of mine, and it sort of naturally then led me to, as I said earlier, working with creative people, getting more then involved in media law. So that then started a different journey in now working in that sort of space, as well as the commercial litigation space in, again, sort of reputation management for those sorts of clients who are profile people. And again, where that space itself has changed dramatically over the last 20 years from how people now put information out there in the public domain. The internet has given born to all sorts of platforms for people to be keyboard warriors in their bedrooms and thinking whatever I say, I can get away with it. And looking at the fallout from the Baby Reindeer production recently. I saw the other night a Piers Morgan interview, and it was just, you see what the internet has done in relation to people instantly are trying to find who is that individual. And it gives birth to a frenzy of sort of people looking and trying to find these things out. Their need to know. And then their need to misrepresent potentially the situation and get it wrong.
Exactly.
So
do you think with the boom of the internet and social media that your approach towards clients and to different scenarios changed significantly?
No, it hasn't changed, but it's the nature of how people put information out there has changed, so you've got to adapt to it. So again, it's like anything, even a business. People now can go on the internet and put a bad review on it and impact on that business and its potential survival. So it's important to be able to deal with it fairly and quickly. Again, with people's reputations. It's quite easy to put something out there and that has a massive impact on that person's career.
Absolutely.
So again, you've got to be fair, sometimes some of the information may be accurate or in the public interest, but sometimes it's just not true, or there's something a bit darker behind it where it's malicious, and then that's where I get involved.
Has your reputation ever been questioned?
Only by you. Not that I'm aware of.
It's first time for everything. No, I just asked because I think it's interesting just to think the age of the internet, there's so much that can be said. And I'm assuming that, like, in terms of you speaking with the opposing counsel, is there ever any, from yourself, I don't think there would be any bad words said, but is there any ever like almost like fights between the counsels that goes beyond
No. I mean, we, as a profession, we've got codes of conduct, and
of course
we have to deal with ourselves as professionals. So people are professional. Again, it's not, advocates don't or shouldn't take things personally.
Exactly.
So you deal with it professionally, and even if you don't agree with the other side, or you think their client's slightly inflammatory in the way they're dealing with it, you don't have to play that game.
Exactly. You have to remain professional.
You've got to remain professional. Your client needs you to remain professional as well, because as soon as you go down a road of being inflammatory, or that's not going to help your client's cause or resolve it.
Absolutely.
So no, I don't think there's anything out there.
No, nothing.
Nothing that you've dug up yet.
So in terms of your work in the film industry and doing things with animals and that sort of thing, it sounds like a lot of your time that's spent outside of litigation and specifically doing solicitor work, it's all come through relationships. Would you say that's correct?
Yeah.
So relationship building is a huge aspect of the success of your career.
Yeah, I like people. I think if you like people and you can, going back to what I said earlier, you've got a fair approach to things, people will hopefully want to work with you and like you, I suppose. So the sort of the media and the animal welfare has almost sort of come together. So some of my clients that I've worked for in the media, I now work with in sort of campaigning or animal welfare issues. So Peter Egan, for example, is a well-known actor, friend of mine, and we've done stuff together over the years as client lawyer. But now we do a lot together for some of the projects we work on, like helping rhinos. So he's the patron of that, and we did a recent screening of the documentary that they filmed in Africa at Soho House, which was brilliant. And again, really supported by Soho House, which was nice.
Do you think that all these different aspects of your career makes it interesting and keeps you engaged with? Yeah,
100%. I mean, you can just be a lawyer, or you can use that as a platform to do other things. And I choose to use it as a platform to get involved, going back to sort of the grassroots of working with people who are involved in animal welfare and charities like that. So I act for a lot of charities as well. And again, sort of through that, I've sort of got roles to work with charities as an ambassador or on their board to then help promote those sorts of causes.
And where do you see yourself in the next 5-10 years? What are some aspirations you have?
Pretty much doing what I'm doing now.
Yeah.
And if I can get involved with more charities on the animal welfare front, the better. And there's a few things that I'm working on at the moment with a young man I think called Mark Abraham. Again, on that sort of campaign trail for welfare on animals, that watch this space.
Amazing. And my final question for you is, for anyone out there who may think that they want to get into a legal career, do you have any advice for them?
I think, like I said earlier, when you're going through your educational journey, whether it's at school or college, reach out to a law firm and do some work experience there. Go and actually see whether it's actually what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
And again, sort of from the if you want to become a media lawyer, go and work for a paper.
Mm-hmm.
Go and work for a production company behind the scenes and see what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Do some grassroots sort of work first to find out, is that actually what you want to do?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And if it is, go for it.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for coming on Seasoned Professional today. It was a pleasure to have you on and learn a bit more about your journey and your career. And I'm sure we could have talked much further, but I'm happy for what we got. And thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks.
Oh, that was so stressful. Oh my God.
One done.
One done.
One
First
done.
one done.
I will see if we got anything good.
There was buckets of goodness.
They're better.
Buckets.
Buckets of goodness.
Will we do it again?
Yeah. We actually have to do it again right now.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I don't have the memory space.
Well.
You were a seasoned professional, if I may say.
Do you have any feedback for my interview style?
No, it's good. Just calm, smiley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think I asked good enough questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to look back at it. It's weird. This is something that you just have to practice at.
Yeah,
It's just how you got to where you are.
But again, it's you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
You keep doing it.
I know. Woo! Goodness. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you so much for being here. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and leave a comment or rating, as it really helps us grow. You'll find any relevant resources in the description below, including details about our guest, links to anything we mentioned, and our application if you'd like to be a guest on Seasoned Professional. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of our community, and I cannot wait to see you next week. Bye-bye.